After my roof sustained its damage, I was trying to deal with the insurance company on my own and fairly quickly realized that the insurance company was not playing fair and realized that I could not have handled this on my own. There is no way. So in my situation, there was a hailstorm in Denver and it was very large hail. I mean, gosh, 3 hours after I got home, there was still hail stones on the size of a quarter, so 1 inch hail. And that was 3 hours after it had stopped hailing. I could see from just standing on the ground, looking up at my roof, that there was clearly damage to the roof. Had reached out to my insurer and they said, okay, get some people out and do some estimates. Had that done, and then it just kind of went sort of south from there. They, were barely gonna cover any part of the claim. They said, oh, we're only gonna cover you for 42 shingles. All the way around, it was just a disaster. In their initial report, didn't even have my correct address or correct photos of my house. They had some other house that wasn't even remotely close to mine. There was just all of these errors, and they just kept delaying and saying, nope, this is all we're gonna do. This is all we're gonna do. You had pea-sized hail. I'm like, I have photographic evidence. They said, we don't care. We looked at the weather report. Here's this. And that's when I was just like, okay, this is not going anywhere. I need to get an attorney involved. So, went online, looked under Google, and found, Robinson Henry, and spoke with them at an initial kind of interview. It seemed like a larger firm that has a bunch of different, subspecialties, had one that kind of fit with my needs, and was able to kind of speak with Matt and was impressed with his knowledge and his interest and being genuine. And I liked how he initially dealt with me, because he was kind, he was supportive and stuff, but he didn't necessarily 100% agree with me. He's like, okay, on the surface, this sounds like this. Let's do some more research. Let's look at this a little more, which I actually think is very valuable. So that way I knew I wasn't getting into something with somebody who's just going to be a yes man and tell me whatever. If it really wasn't going to be a good case, I would want that. So that way I don't waste my time, and obviously he wouldn't waste his. But I think to some people there's just kind of this scariness of, oh, hey, gosh, I'm talking to an attorney. Dealing with him was very, very easy. It was like talking to a buddy. He was professional, but when he would explain things, he would, try and kind of make it sort of lay terms. Just felt like he was there battling for me and kind of took everything out of my hands, which was very nice, because initially during the whole process, it was me battling directly with the insurance adjusters and things like that. And then he took it out of my hands. And so it was like this huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. I told Matt from the start that, really I wanted to make sure that my roof was covered, because it needs to be replaced because it was damaged, and that's why you pay insurance. And, obviously we got that, plus pretty much, the higher end of the legally allowed damages. And I think, a lot of that has to do with Matt's hard work and his persistence. And I'm sure he's had, helpers here who've kind of, helped him along with things and stuff. So it was just kind of the whole package of everybody here kind of really making sure that everything came along as quickly as they could and as painless for me as possible with a, maximum benefit. I would definitely recommend Robinson Henry to pretty much anyone that I know who needs an attorney. It's just been an overall very pleasant experience. It's really been my first time where I've really needed to get an attorney to represent. And, it was, I don't want to say it was a pleasure, because anytime you have to hire an attorney, something's not right. And so, not pleasurable situation, but as far as how it's handled, couldn't ask for anything more. It far and away exceeded my expectations.